let's get into the big topic of open source, something that we actually say at Red Hat.
We haven't
This is so
we
awesome.
are an open culture that believes
actually
in
a big
importance of
piece
What is that process that a developer, or let's say
As the Kubernetes ecosystem really boomed,
Hello and welcome to this week's Ask an OpenShift Admin Office Hours live stream. Actually, Johnny, have we changed to Ask an OpenShift Expert yet? I mean, I guess we have, but we haven't.
Not officially.
Yeah. So, anyways, welcome to the live stream, and thank you to everybody who's joining us today. I am Andrew Sullivan, co-hosting with Mr. Johnny Rickard today. Can you tell it's been a minute since I did this? Like I'm like completely one distracted and two for as my fiance would point out, it gets rare for me to be at a loss of words, and here I am like stumbling.
Yeah, your cadence is a little bit off. Like everybody notices. It's all over Twitter. It's kind of a big deal.
Twitter doesn't exist anymore.
Oh wait, it's all over X.
Yeah, it's X, formerly Twitter. Like I noticed that.
Yes.
It's still, it's not just X, it's X, formerly Twitter.
Yeah, it's like do you want to telltale sign of how you murdered an excellent brand when you still have to refer to it in your new name. Like that's how you know that you've murdered an excellent brand.
Well, it is great to be here. Great to be back. I feel like it's been a month of Sundays since I was last on the stream. I know that Johnny, you've been doing a couple of these without me being here. Not that I need to be here by any stretch of the imagination, but it has been a little intermittent here at the start of the year, and that is nobody's fault but our own. And it's largely because, like, it turns out we've had a few things going on. So I think we've got a number of topics lined up for the next bunch of weeks. Although I want to say KubeCon is coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's next week.
Is it next week?
After. Yeah,
I think it's the week after. I don't know. I can't keep up.
Oh,
So we will probably not be streaming the week of KubeCon, just to give everybody a chance to watch that content. And then we have Summit coming up in late May, so we will be skipping that week as well. But otherwise, I think we've got a pretty robust set of topics, as well as Johnny and I are at least one of us will be available for all of the various content or all the various things. It's only 7 weeks. Yeah, I know. So we were talking about this before we started. Of like, I've been, I don't want to say gallivanting around the globe, because I've only been doing things in like Raleigh, where I live, as well as on the eastern coast of the U.S. But we've had just a number of training events and a number of all kinds of things that have been going on that I haven't been able to escape from, and it's one of those like. I'm sitting in a room of 30 or 50 people delivering a session, and I can't duck out to come and be with y'all for an hour or an hour and a half, which makes me sad, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's the benefit of being good at your job, right? They don't benefit people that are good at their job with like less work. It's always more, and so it just piles and piles and piles up, and here we are.
The reward for doing a good job is more work.
More work, yep.
Yeah, I'm a manager now. I'm not supposed to say it. Wait.
I mean, that's what you get for being so good. That's all.
Yeah.
So it's good to be here, Johnny. Good to see you. Good to see your smiling face.
You too.
Nice T-shirt, by the way.
Thank you.
And today we are joined by Sean Rickard, who is not a first-time guest.
No, yeah, second time, which is cool.
Yeah. So, Sean, I'll ask you to introduce yourself again, and then we'll go through the top of mind stuff that Johnny had picked out, and roll into today's topic.
Sure. So, hi everybody. My name is Sean Rickard. I am the principal technical marketing manager for OpenShift Security. So I'm the guy that builds all the cool hacky demos and puts together a bunch of technical presentations around the security of OpenShift. So, yeah.
And I will say, Sean, thank you so much for coming on. And we were talking just before we started the stream, like Sean was actually scheduled to come on 3 weeks ago, and then just incident after incident happened, and like it was my fault completely. So yes, thank you for being patient and being awesome and coming back on. I really do appreciate it. And excellent last name, even though you spelled it wrong.
Well, it's kind of funny because here in Canada we have a beer called Rickard's Red, when they spell it your way, and I keep telling people, it's like, I missed out on the beer fortune by one letter.
Thank you, Sean, and appreciate that. Oh, there you are, Johnny. You froze for a moment.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, all good. So thank you, Sean. I know I'm looking forward to seeing the demo that you've got today. Although I will admit that, as Johnny pointed out when we all joined the call a few minutes ago, like he didn't even expect me to be here. So that also means that I'm, aside from knowing what you work on a day-to-day basis, I actually don't even know what today's demo is going to be, Sean. So
Oh, well,
I'm
very nice.
excited.
Well, first, are you going to be, quoting Dante from Clerks? I'm not even supposed to be here today.
I'm not just...
No, actually the demo is going to be it's an update on the demo I did last year. So last year I came on and I exploited the 2017 Struts vulnerability to create a remote code execution on a container in OpenShift. So now I've updated it to use the 2024 vulnerability, which instead of being just a straight remote code execution, it's a path traversal attack, and then using that to trigger a remote code execution, and then using Red Hat ACS to block that and to ensure that vulnerable workloads aren't deployed again. So that's going to be the demo.
Awesome. I'm sure our IT folks love you triggering the antivirus on a regular basis.
It's Kubernetes. There's no antivirus. There's just ACS.
Yeah. So I see a little bit of chat here. So Bjorn, yes, please ask all the questions you'd like. We are happy to do our best to answer those. So the live stream is part of the office hours series of live streams here with Red Hat Live Streaming, which means that we are here to answer any and all questions that you have, preferably about OpenShift. We don't always know things outside of that, but kind of anything OpenShift related is on the table. We may not know the answer. Johnny and I are both limited in our knowledge of things, but we do know a lot of folks on Slack that we can reach out to internally to get help and hopefully be able to get answers for you here on the stream. Or if not, we can always follow up. And if you're not watching us live, I know a lot of folks don't watch us live, feel free to reach out to us anytime. You've got Johnny and I's email addresses here on the screen, Johnny, JONNY at redhat.com, or me, Sully, SULLY at redhat.com. We'd love to get emails from you. I think I've got a couple outstanding that I need to reply to, including one from a customer who there's been a lot of internal chatter over the last couple of weeks, and I keep forgetting to respond back to them and bring them up to date on all the stuff. So I promise you all, we don't forget about them. It's just sometimes we forget that we're having internal conversation that doesn't include you, and then we eventually circle back around.
By the way, Sully, at first, I'm super jealous of you guys having those cool aliases for your emails. I still have, first initial, last name. But Bjorn is actually asking a really good question. So he's looking to test ACS in his home lab, and I think it's a very good question for today. Yeah, the requirements are quite high for an on-prem, but a great solution for that is actually the ACS Cloud Service, which does have a 60-day free trial. So you don't even have to deploy that in your home lab. You just deploy it using the Red Hat console, and then you can connect your home lab to that to be monitored. So that kind of saves a bit of the headache of getting that deployed in your home lab.
Nice.
When using dev spaces, policies, for example, to control what they do with ODO or ODO. I think that might be a question for you, Sean.
Yep. So when it comes to dev spaces and kind of the developer centric stuff, there's a couple of things. OpenShift pipelines is definitely one of the things that you're going to want to implement. So basically Tecton chains, and we also have some trusted software supply chain products that are coming out that are really made more for the developer experience. I tend to stay more on kind of like the operations side of things, but if you send me an email, I will go ahead and get you in contact with my colleague Marcus, who is the TSSC guy, and he can answer all that for you.
Awesome, and that's TSSI is Trusted Software Supply Chain.
Correct.
TSSCI?
Yeah.
Not,
so that includes three products. It's the Trusted Application Pipeline, the Trusted Profile Analyzer, and the Trusted Artifact Signer.
Yeah, TSSCI is also another thing to government people.
Yeah.
Well, there's no I in ours. It's just TSSC. So that's
that's
our
fair.
internal shortening of it. Yeah, we would take out the I, and it's yeah.
Anyways, All right. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate you answering questions. And Bjorn and anybody else who's watching, please don't hesitate to ask questions. Johnny, what do we got top of mind?
Yeah, so March 12th, I think it was March 12th, the cutover for DNS from docs.openshift.com to docs.redhat.com actually happened. So if you find if you're doing a Google search for docs, it's going to redirect you over to the Red Hat site now. So just be aware that it's on purpose. It's doing what it's supposed to do. But on April 1st, there's going to be a firewall change that you're going to need to do if you have a restricted network. If you're working behind a proxy or you have a firewall, they're adding 3 endpoints to the Quay.io DNS. And I put the Red Hat article here, but just so you know, like it's got the endpoints that are listed, or the endpoints that are going to be added are listed in this article. So if you have firewall restrictions, make sure that you update them so that way you can continue to do your builds. And then right before we came on, I was getting a notification.
I'll interrupt you, Johnny, just to point out that so one, the new docs site, I say new, it's the old docs site if you've been looking at the RHEL or Ansible's docs or anything like that. But there are improvements and there are things that I won't say they are bad, but maybe not the same. In particular, I appreciate the search feature is, in my opinion, significantly better in the new site. But I've also heard folks saying that it loads a little bit slower, and can potentially, if you're looking at it on a mobile device and stuff like that, occasionally, I guess because it's rendered in JavaScript, or I don't know. But occasionally, folks will say that on mobile browsers they get page load errors and stuff like that. So if you encounter any of that stuff, be sure to open up an issue with the docs site. So I think there's a. Let me see if I can show how to do this. I thought that there was a link on here about how to open a issue directly on there, but if not, you can reach out to any Red Hatter and they should know how to do it. So that way you can find those and report any issues. Generally speaking, I always encourage folks, like if you see documentation pages that don't make sense or this is poorly organized or something like that, open up an issue for it. Because the docs team, like if they don't know that this is confusing and doesn't make sense, then they can't go back and fix it. So documentation is always subjective in my opinion, but yeah, that team is super responsive to and sensitive to the feedback and stuff there. I chat with them regularly.
Yeah, I submitted a ticket on the Service Mesh docs where in Service Mesh 3 we're moving to Tempo, Grafana Tempo for distributed tracing, and like in the docs it's like, hey, go here to do this, but if you click on the link, actually I think there was no link at that point, but like then when they updated or when it got updated, there was a link, but it went to a different page. So I just submitted an issue, and yeah, they were awesome about getting it fixed. So it's pretty nice. But yeah, so then April 1st, firewall change. Make sure you look at that access article. If you can't see it for whatever reason, let me know and I'll forward you the endpoints. Just email us and I'll send them to you, like if you can't get to it, but you should be able to get to it. And then the other thing was we're going to talk about it right now just to like raise the conversation point, but like once we get started with the stream, like Sean will actually, not to put you on the spot, Sean, but we will collectively talk more in depth about the Ingress Nightmare vulnerability that's come out. So there, if you haven't heard yet, I think it was March 24th or earlier this week at some point. They found, I think it was like 5 different vulnerabilities or something like that around this Ingress Nightmare, and it's a way that if all the things line up, then an attacker can take over and they can do some stuff. And
essentially what it is that it will allow an attacker to gain access to the secrets, and then from there can do a load of damage. And I think, since we're talking about Ingress Nightmare, it's a good time to mention that by default, OpenShift is not vulnerable. And the reason for that is that the default ingress for OpenShift is OpenShift router. And that is based on HA proxy and not Nginx. So if you're running a default OpenShift deployment, you don't have to worry about this vulnerability. If you did change the ingress to Nginx and you're running ACS will detect that within the platform CVEs. So you're able to find out if you're you're vulnerable or not.
Yeah, awesome. And then finally, the last one is just something that's kind of come out in Kubernetes 1.32, not quite yet in OpenShift, but I'm sure it will be part of the OpenShift feature set eventually. Is this thing called a job set, and the job set is it's a distributed batch API that will run individual jobs. Think of it as processing like large language models. And I'm literally like a 5-minute expert on this. And I was reading like the description from the Kubernetes website, but it just seemed kind of cool because it's like it's not quite swap, but it's allowing you to like batch out these individual processes that you need, and it makes it like it makes using the individual GPUs less. It just it's what's the word, accommodating to the GPUs and stuff like that. So it helps run these large batch jobs that you would have with building models and learning models and stuff like that. So just keep an eye out. We'll do more on it once it becomes more official, and like once it, I guess I don't want to say mainstream, but it gets into OpenShift, we'll definitely mess with it. There's some swap features that are coming out that I wanted to wait until actually we did like a demo of it in OpenShift to kind of talk about it. But yeah, there's a lot of cool things that are coming out with
Yeah, I'll poke at the
Linux
swap
simple things.
topic for a moment because I think it's important to highlight that for OpenShift virtualization, it supports swap for VMs using WASP today. So essentially, the swap that is in upstream Kubernetes is more general purpose and can be used with any workload inside of there. So the difference is, Kubernetes, I assume everybody who's watching us, right, has deployed Kubernetes at some point in their life, right? Step one for the underlying operating system is turn off swap, because the scheduler doesn't understand swap, it doesn't know how to accommodate swap, and so what happens is when it reaches, the out of memory, when the server is out of memory, then, or VM, whatever it is, it triggers the out of memory kill process, right? And swap just doesn't factor into that. So WASP is specific to OpenShift virtualization and allowing VMs to be able to swap, so while live migrations happen in the background. But upstream, they're working on enabling swap more broadly and directly integrated with Kubernetes in a more native way.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Sully. All right, Sean, you ready?
Sure. Yeah.
Welcome to Thunderdome.
Welcome
get
to the
after
Thunderdome. All right, so we do have a couple of questions. I'll go ahead and answer those real quick. Gerard is an RHCSA from Paris. Has a question: if ACS is somehow linked to Red Hat OpenShift Container Storage? No, it is not. So the OpenShift Container Storage is essentially our Ceph distribution. I believe it used to be called Data Foundations, or we renamed it. I'm not sure. I'm not on the storage side.
It's currently OpenShift Data Foundation.
Data Foundation,
It used
yeah.
to be, OCS, OpenShift Container Storage.
There you go. Yeah. So not linked to it at all. So ACS is the Advanced Cluster Security. It is completely separate from that. Yeah, that's the answer. And I'll break character a couple of seconds here and go into a different language. Si jamais vous avez d'autres questions, écrivez-moi. Ça va me faire plaisir de vous répondre. So, no, French. So,
I'll point out that maybe I'm reading too much into Gerard's question here, but I wonder if he might be asking, like, can ACS, I'm going to say, do its security things with the things that are stored in ODF? So if I have a PVC, let's ignore where it's coming from, but like if I have a PVC, can ACS do things inside of that PVC?
So ACS will not scan the contents of a persistent volume. Really what it does, it will scan the workload and look for vulnerabilities. It's also going to look for configuration mismatches and things like that. It's not going to scan your files and look for, a virus.
Not an antivirus, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not going to do that. But I mean, the other thing that it does do is scan images, which that can be done from Quay or from Docker. Was it ACR for Amazon, or ECR for
ECR? Yeah,
ECR, and I think Azure's got the ACR. So, but anyway, from a container repository, you can scan images from there and then report back on vulnerabilities. But yeah, so long answer short, no, it's not going to really look into persistent volumes.
Do we have anything that does that? And that's just, I'm actually genuine question.
Maybe no, we don't really. No,
okay.
At least not from a product perspective.
Okay.
Data Foundations might have something for that potentially, but again, I'm not a storage guy, and if I remember right, I think we passed that along over to IBM. So
Yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah. Yeah, I think the combination of maybe like the file integrity operator and then maybe the compliance operator could do some of the scanning, but I guess that's more posturing though versus scanning. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, cool.
All right, so you guys want me to show the demo?
Yeah. Oh, actually, we have one question from R Hope 9.
Yep.
Is there a way to configure ACS to block containers with known vulnerabilities of a predetermined level after a predetermined time, say 72 hours?
Sort of. So not out of the box, really.
Hmm.
Technically, you can use Rox Cuddle or Rox Control, depending how you pronounce it, to be called using a cron tab. Like you could set, hey, in 72 hours, run this command from cron. That will do it. But because the way that ACS works is once you put in a policy, it takes effect right away. As soon as it's enabled, it will start blocking, the vulnerability or whatever issue that it's meant to block. So, yeah, again, out of the box, no, you can hack it to make it work. But would I say that it's a supported model or a supported way of doing things? No.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. And R Hope 9, if there's like any extension to that question that you want, just feel free to ask. All right, Sean. Let's
All right.
do this.
Let's do this. So I'm going to share a window. This should be the one. Okay, so can you guys see this? You should have two tabs. Yeah, it looks like it's right. Yeah, awesome. So this is my test environment, my test OpenShift cluster. Obviously, this is not a default deployment. You can see there's a lot of things that are angry here. That's okay. That's what I want. I don't want it to be a happy cluster. One thing that I do have working in here, though, is in my deployments under my vulnerables project, I've got a deployment that is OCP Struts 2. Now this, like I said before at the beginning of this this podcast, last year I did the 2017 Struts vulnerability. This is based on the 2024 53677 vulnerability, which is the latest one from December. So it's a little bit different, but still vulnerable. And from here, I've got a couple of things. I've got a pod that's running the vulnerable workload. And I've got under my networking here, I've created a route to point to it. So if I click on this, it actually opens it up and says, hey, look, this is my vulnerable thing. The whole idea here is that the vulnerability is a path traversal attack, which means that an attacker could upload something somewhere other than where it's supposed to be. Like, for example, that should be in web apps root / uploads or whatever, right? In this case, we were actually able to force it to upload somewhere else, which would make it accessible, through a web page, for example. So, just to show you that this actually does work, I'm going to pick a file here that I've got. I'm going to put it in the list because it's easier that way. I'm going to upload this picture and we're going to submit. Does it work? Yep, it works. And there's my dog. So now, in all intents and purposes of a legitimate deployment, this could be something like a university that has a web page for students to upload their work to be graded or whatever, and without knowing the vulnerability could open up the organization to potential attacks. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my share to my
But really important question, actually. Is that a Belgian Malinois?
no, it's actually a German Shepherd.
That's German. Oh, okay, nice.
Yes,
Beautiful
yes,
dog, man. Beautiful dog.
Thank you. He's a derpy dog, and I love him.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yep. All right, so let me see if I've got the right one here. So that's the problem with sharing a window. It just tells me like I've got a bunch of the same. I know I've got 3 terminals open.
Hey, and Sean, we got a question about your demo. Is it available on GitHub?
It is actually. So I will share that. I can share it right now, actually. While I'm sharing stuff.
Sean, you can't squint a little tiny window to figure out which one it is.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. And so that's not the right one. I think I'm gonna make them bigger so we can see better. That's not the one. Let me share the other one. I will eventually get to the right one, and I'll memorize which one is which. So, is it just going on the same one over and over again?
That is the same
That
one.
appears to be the same one. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
You're good. I don't know if you've ever seen any demo that I've done. They are terrible. So I do my best to not suck, but I'm the most terrible.
So
Yes, I keep
MLV
saying-
question, I guess because any of us, is Cilium CNI better for OpenShift? Better is always a subjective term, right? There is no better or worse. Rather, it's does this meet my needs better than or in a better way than whatever the alternative happens to be. So this, Tigera or not Tigera, but
Calico.
Cilium, Cilium is Cisco now, but Tigera or Ovian Kubernetes or Cilium, whatever. What are my needs? What are the things I need to do with the SDN? Is it capable of delivering those things for me? So better is always subjective. It's like people will ask like, oh, what's the best practices for doing XYZ? And my response is always, well, best practices imply that they should always be done. And if it's something that should always be done, it should be the default in the product. And so my response is always like, it's more like an architectural guide of like, here's the 900 things that you should think about and consider, and potential options and pros and cons in order to make decisions, hopefully educated decisions based off of what your requirements are.
All right, so yeah, I've given up. I'm just going to share the entire screen.
Yeah, you made it.
Yeah. All right. So as I mentioned before, the whole idea is that we're going to be uploading a file. In this case, it's going to be a Java shell to a location that is other than where it's supposed to be. So I've got my full command already saved in my list because typing it out is a pain in the butt. But basically, I'm using this struts Python exploit, which I didn't write. I got it on the internet because.
Sean, we'll probably have to make the text a little larger
Bigger?
on that.
Yeah.
How's that?
That's better.
That's better. There you go. So the whole idea is that we're using the Python. We're actually attacking my endpoint to which is the route that I showed you before. The upload endpoint is upload.action. I'm using my shell JSP, and the destination is actually going to be one directory back and then shell. So the idea is that we're putting it directly into the web root. So if everything goes well, it should say, yep, successful. Hey, it says that it actually happened. So I'm going to point back to our other window, which is going to be this one here. Was that right? Nope. Actually, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm bad at this. There it is. This is the one we want. So share. Perfect. This is the proper one. So here we're going to see my dog's picture again. If we go back to our upload page, we'll see up here in the URL, we've got our upload action. You guys can't see that right there, right? Yes.
Can't see what? I'm sorry.
The URL.
We
No,
cannot see the URL.
Cannot see the URL.
Okay. That's obnoxious. One sec. I'm going to switch it again, and we're just going to do entire screen because I guess that's what we're doing. All right. And I'm going to move my never-ending window over to the other. All right. There we go. So now we should be able to see the URL as well. Yep. Perfect. So up here, our upload action was where we were actually pointing to. We're going to go and use our shell.jsp. So now this is what I've uploaded. I made it available from anybody that can access the route. This is bad because not only does it give me a shell that I can actually use, so I can do who am I, it actually gives me root access. And we know what we can do with root access, right?
Mhm.
So now as a smart attacker, I'm going to say, hey, you know what is this actually running? So we're going to do a OS release. It's Ubuntu. Being a smart attacker, I know that means I can probably use apt-get. So let's see if they actually kept the package manager in or removed it. A smart container would actually have it removed, but let's see. This gives me full access to everything. So I can do apt-get install netcat traditional, and now I can start doing some real damage. So now that it's doing that, it's installing. I'm going to share it to my other screen because I don't want you guys to see my IP address because it's my real IP address and we don't want that.
Don't worry, Sully and I have never done this.
Oh,
We've
yeah,
never
no,
exposed
I'm
our
sure,
IPs
I'm
or
sure.
pull
We-
secrets.
Or both, yeah.
All right. And okay, so perfect. So you guys can see that in my my shell here, I'm actually going to use the netcat command because over here, I'm actually listening. So I've got my attacker box here that's listening. I'm going to run the NC command with my other little stuff in here. Copy paste because it's easier. There you go. And if all goes well, oh, there you go. We got connections. So if I go, who am I here? Root, I can actually go and see all the things that you don't want people to get to. I can traverse everywhere. I can look at everything. I can change things. I can pull out a VI and I can start doing bad things. Actually, I can't do VI here, but yeah, I could do a echo and put in some code here, random code. And then I could push that to a file, which is going to be attack.py. And then I can actually input a very, very dangerous and nasty way for me to actually expose the entire cluster and eventually own the cluster. And then I can take over the university. And, so yes, I like to get dramatic. But that's essentially it. Right there, you've now seen that what happens is that using a path reversal attack, we can upload a shell. We can make that something that we can leverage to gain access to the cluster. Luckily, just like last year, the administrator is super smart, super attractive, super friendly, and he's the best there is at what he does. And he's got ACS installed. So let's go to our Red Hat Advanced Cluster Security here. Which is going to be, so I'm going to share that. That's so in our dashboard, and I'll wait for Johnny to share it.
Yep.
So can you guys see it?
It is a black screen. There we go.
So here, we can actually go into our violations, and right in our violations, we can see everything that I've done. So we can see that we had the Ubuntu package manager that was called, and that's when I first ran apt-get update. The netcat execution that I got for to connect to the box itself, and the shell spawn that happened when I ran some commands. So obviously, the first thing that we want to do is we want to go and stop that from happening again, right? So if I click on my shell spawn and I look at the deployment, all right, what deployment is it? It's in our OCP struts 2 in vulnerables. I can actually go into the deployment ID here. I can see what other vulnerabilities it has. Gives me a nice wheel of what the critical ones are. And we can see here that this is actually the one we're looking at. It's the Apache struts with the upload logic is flawed. So I know exactly what is causing this these violations and what to do to stop it. So first, I'm going to go into my policy management. I'm going to bring up a policy for shell spawn application, shell spawn by Java application, because that is the most dangerous and the one that needs to be handled right away. I'm going to clone this policy. Best practices, always clone. That way you can actually rename things to what it makes more sense. And also, if ever that there's an update that changes the out-of-the-box system policies, your clone policies will not be affected and it won't cause issues in the long run. So I'll just say this: struts. In my behavior, I'm going to go down here to inform and enforce, and I'm going to click my runtime, and then I'm just going to review policy and save. Now, if I go back to here and I try, oh, you guys didn't see that, and I do my apt-get update again, that's starting to work. But in my policy management here in violations, we're going to see that it actually stopped it. So here we've got it, the struts deployed, enforced one time. And what that did is it actually killed my pod. So now this pod, if I go into pods and my vulnerables and I go here, we'll notice that this pod is actually brand new. It got spawned 1 minute, less than a minute ago. So ACS killed the running pod to prevent the attack from having. Yes, it does use eBPF actually. So to answer MLV, it is eBPF. So we were able to stop that. So that means that the attacker can no longer exploit our stuff, the way it did before. Now, if I reload this, it should be I should still be in my shell, right? The shell is now no longer there because hasn't been uploaded. We reverted to a sane pod, and the attacker would have to go back and redo the attack. Now, does that mean that the attack won't work? Absolutely, it will. I can still go in there. I can still re-upload and still restart the shell. However, whenever I try to run a command, that's going to kill the pod and restart it.
And Sean,
so I mean,
is it possible to retain those pods for like forensic analysis?
You could, and the way to do that would be to just not put in a policy that will kill it. So the runtime policy is the way it works in ACS out of the box, is that it will kill the pod as soon as it sees a workload that is not supposed to be running. If you want to keep the pod, there are other ways to do that. One of them would be to kill the route. I mean, you would basically stop the way for an attacker to connect. There's a couple of different ways to do it, and then that way you can look at it. But again, with the violations, we're able to see where it came from. I mean, if you're looking for what damage was done into the pod, the idea would be to kill the pod, connect to it internally, and then run your forensics. But the main point that I want to get to is when it comes to the actual issue with the deployment itself, right? So the deployment is vulnerable. As a responsible security person, you want to tell your developer, hey, you have to fix this. We're not going to allow this deployment to be run if it's not fixed. And then you can actually put in a policy for that. So I'm going to share my screen again. First, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to use an OC command to delete my deployment. So delete, there we go. That way it's going to be easier for me to create the policy. So here in the policy, I'm going to do a search for policy, and in this case, it's going to be struts, because I know we've got one. Oh, not there. Sorry, policy management, policy struts, and policy. Let's try it again. There you go, struts. There it is. So this policy is the 2017 policy. I'm going to go ahead and clone it again, and I'm going to change a couple of things. So we're going to clone the policy. We're going to change this from CV 2017 to 2024 53677. I'm going to update this information wherever it needs to be, so that way people know that this is a policy for this. And we know that with a version of Apache struts greater than 6.4.0, the vulnerability was fixed in 6.4.1. So we're going to do that. Here we can also put in some information about the MITRE attack vectors. This would we consider as the initial access or execution. This is all optional information. But if you're looking to have a deeper vision into what MITRE attack vectors are being used, it's a good way to do it. I'm not going to put anything in there. I'm just going to change my behavior to inform and enforce, and that's going to be on the build and on the deploy. And my policy criteria was going to be to look for 53677. So here I go ahead and save. I've got a new struts policy now. If I search for struts, actually I'll just go down here, Apache struts, there it is. I can click on this. We see that it's the user generated one. It gives me the information on that. And now if I go to my entire screen on my other one there, if I go to my OC command, so here I've got my connection, my terminal connection to my OpenShift. If I go ahead and do a create and using my YAML, we're going to get a message back saying, "Yep, you can't," and it's going to give us information, or it's going to give our developer information about this. So it's going to say, "Hey, we're not allowing this deployment to happen because it's vulnerable, and we don't want that to actually happen." And the cool thing is that when I go back to my ACS here, instead of into my violations, we're actually going to see our block deployment. So we're able to use ACS to stop these types of attacks right in their tracks if they're present. Now, that brings me to another point. OpenShift by default won't even allow this deployment to be spun up. The reason for that is the way that OpenShift is built, kind of as a secure by default kind of approach. It's very similar to a zero trust approach. And for me to be able to actually get this to happen, I had to loosen up the security on my OpenShift environment. Like I said, it's not a healthy OpenShift deployment. I don't want it to be healthy. I want it to be vulnerable and weak, and I want to be able to poke at it with a stick. So without actually going in and allowing for privileged containers, for allowing the right to the container, it's not even going to work. Like even the upload process would just fail. It would not allow a write to the container. So I actually had to go through a couple of steps to loosen up the security. So the whole idea is that OpenShift is an enterprise grade solution. It is secure by default, built to be secure, and this goes along with the fact that security is a part of the Red Hat DNA. It's been there since SC Linux, and it continues to be.
Yeah.
And that's the demo,
Yeah.
guys.
And so Bjorn's got a few questions for you here, Sean.
Yeah.
So Bjorn, correct me if I'm wrong or keep me honest here. I think what you're asking with this first question is more or less, is there an audit log for who has done what within ACS? So you use the example of like who viewed the HD password secret, but I can only imagine that there's other actions that would be. Yeah,
there's other actions. So that it can be done through OpenShift itself. OpenShift does have a log of what has been accessed, and yeah, the HD password there, and that's really because you shouldn't have people looking at the HD password. Ideally, and again, this is not a production OpenShift. It's a very, very weakened OpenShift. You're not going to be using HD password anyway, right? You're going to be using some sort of OIDC or and some other sort of authentication provider to go in. So that's not even something that would even matter. But yeah, within OpenShift, you can see the logs of what's been accessed.
And then next question: is there a YAML view for policy editing?
YAML view, we're using Rockscuttle. Okay. So not within ACS itself.
Not like, because ACM has a thing where whenever you make policies in there, there's always a toggle for YAML, but or ACM does that, but ACS does not.
No, yeah, exactly. No.
And some parts of OpenShift do that, and some parts don't.
Yeah, exactly. But through Rockscuttle, so everything that you're doing within the UI is just an API call. So it's just calling something in the back end, essentially either running a kube command or a Rockscuttle command. So if you've got Rockscuttle deployed on your environment, you can just do everything directly from that, and you can get a layout using that.
Yeah. Do you know if there's like is that a roadmap item to have the YAML view or to have the YAML editor?
I have not seen it.
Okay.
If that's something that people are interested in, absolutely, let your Red Hat person know, and they'll open up an RFE. But it's not currently on any roadmap that I've seen.
Okay, and that's exactly where I was leading into, Sean. I was steering the conversation that way. Yeah. So Bjorn, if this is a feature that you'd really like, the right approach here would be to open up an RFE either on your own or with your sales team or your account team, and then that way at least get it in the process to get approved or denied. To get some effort behind it, because to me it sounds like it's something
Well-
that would be useful to you, and it would be consistent across the different platforms. So
So I think the question behind that is, and Bjorn followed up here, which is how to manage the policies as code. They're all YAML
With
objects,
Rockscuttle.
right? All you do
Yeah.
is, I mean, you can use Rockscuttle or you can use an OC get command or whatever, and it shows up as YAML that way, and then you can manage it using GitOps or whatever methodology
Yeah.
you choose.
Correct.
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, in the UI, there doesn't happen to be an easy way of graphically building a policy and then seeing what that looks like in YAML. Instead, you would build it in the UI and then separately go and pull that YAML object out of the cluster. Wasn't there? I thought somebody asked a question up above. Now I got to.
there are more. Yeah, there are more.
Well, there was a
So
there
I
was a
see a
question about
question from,
GitOps. Somebody asked something about GitOps way up above.
Yep. It was Bjorn. For people who like GitOps, is there a preferred way to manage it? For example, the policies and rules? Like, are more people using Argo CD or Rackham for their policies? And is there a community policy repository?
So there is it's more through Red Hat OpenShift GitOps. So yes, you can. There's an operator. I'm just going to put in. Here, somebody can share that. That's the operator there. So you can use that. Is this also going to the OC client?
Yes. Yeah. So just like with most of the whatever CTL, whatever Cuttle commands that we have, so virtcuttle, rockscuttle, etc., they're just wrappers to make some actions more simple. But underneath the covers, it's all, kubectl or OC can do the exact same things. So I'm most familiar with the virtualization side of things. So I can use virtctl start and then a VM, and it abstracts the process of going in and setting the virtual machine status to running. Or I can do OC edit or kubectl edit and manually set that, go in and edit the field and save it, and it'll do the same thing. Rockscuttle is the same, right? It's just abstracting what's happening behind the scenes with the Kubernetes API and standard YAML objects.
Yeah,
Or
and
JSON,
to go
for JSON.
Yeah, sorry, so I didn't mean to cut you off there. And just to kind of go back to your question about like what's the preferred method, it's a really crappy answer of it depends on what you guys are using. Like, if ACM does a lot of awesome stuff with policy management and like policy enforcement, where if you're trying to deploy applications to a cluster, you can identify that. If you're trying to move secrets around, it's really awesome at that. But then you have Argo CD, which is really good at deploying applications. So it really comes down to like what tool you're using for what, and like which tool you're more comfortable with. Because I think Rackham uses OpenShift GitOps underneath the covers, and like either via API or whatever, but it's using some form of the GitOps operator to do its thing. So it just really comes down to the tools that you have and the tools that you're comfortable with using.
We've got a question from Jorge. How does the sync across multiple clusters work? Essentially, if you've got multiple clusters that are secured by secure clusters, when you create a policy, it's going to affect everything. There is ways to separate that, but essentially, in a standard deployment, a policy will be across all the clusters.
Yeah, and Bjorn, to the question about like managing state, that's where you'd use GitOps, and a combination of GitOps and maybe like OpenShift pipelines, right? So you could do like your builds through OpenShift pipelines, and then have your policies there. But like if you're trying to manage like in state, then yeah, I would use either a Rackham policy for the deployment and enforcement, or Argo CD for the enforcement deployment. Hopefully that's helping you. But like if you're doing this at build time, then OpenShift pipelines is probably going to be your best bet, because you can import the rocksctl binary, or I think they might even actually have tasks that are rocksctl tasks, But same thing with OC, and then you can also build a lot of this stuff into to talk to ACS and start enforcing policies at your builds. So that way, the thing that Sean was showing where the package manager being installed, you can prevent that image from ever even being allowed in your cluster through a policy. And then so when you're trying to do a build, it'll just stop the build right there and fail hard because it's not even allowed.
Douglas asked a question about, can OKD be used for production purposes? This is one of those, like, it's a matter of opinion, right? OKD is our community upstream version of OpenShift. So effectively what that means is two things. One, it's unsupported by Red Hat, and two, it means that you are probably using, packages that have not had the full set of testing, validation, QA, QE that regular OpenShift packages would have gone through.
Exactly.
So if you're okay with that risk, absolutely use it for production.
Yeah, exactly. It is, it's our original Kubernetes distribution. It's what OpenShift is built on. Within as a product, I believe we also have OKE, which is kind of like the bare bones OpenShift without the actual UI.
The enterprise Kubernetes version.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, which that is another way of approaching it. It's not a full featured OpenShift, but at least it is a productized version, and it does come with Red Hat support. Usually, people will use it as a stepping stone to eventually go to OpenShift, but that's another option.
Yeah, we've started using the term editions. So you'll see 4 different editions of OpenShift, right? Because there's one OpenShift. And then the editions determine what it is you're paying to be able to use and to have supported. So OpenShift virtualization engine, it's still the exact same OpenShift, right? We don't change the bits. It's not a different build or anything like that. It's with OpenShift virtualization, OVE, I am only allowed to deploy virtual machine-based workload inside of that. With OKE, I am only allowed and only supported to use the enterprise Kubernetes bits and pieces inside of there. So if I, for example, already have my own, third-party choice of tools for doing service mesh, for doing, CI/CD type things, right? All that, I can get the Red Hat enterprise Kubernetes and then deploy those things on top of it. If I want to use the Red Hat versions of those things that are tested, validated, supported, as a single entity on top of OpenShift, then I have OpenShift Container Platform. So now I get all of the features and capabilities of an application platform within OpenShift, all from Red Hat and all supported as a single unit. And then the fourth one is OpenShift Platform Plus, which is where we add in the additional products of ACS, ACM, so Advanced Cluster Security, Advanced Cluster Management, Quay for a enterprise container registry, and ODF if you want to do in-cluster storage. And that kind of rounds out the set of capabilities associated with deploying, managing, scaling, securing applications across one or more OpenShift clusters. Or Kubernetes clusters for that matter. Both ACS and ACM work with non-Red Hat, non-OpenShift Kubernetes.
We have a question from Bjorn. Is there a plan to support Yara rules, for example, in the far future? Currently, I haven't seen it on the roadmap for ACS. However, it's already a part of our Red Hat Insights. So Yara can already be used for malware detection within the standard RHEL ecosystem. And because Kubernetes is not like standard stuff, generally malware doesn't really exist there. Especially because containers are ephemeral. But yeah. So,
can you describe what Yara rules are? Because to be honest, I just Googled it, and when I heard Yara, I immediately went to Game of Thrones, and so I was like, "Wait, what is a Yara rule?" So I just, if I don't mean to put you on the spot. Like if you have a,
from my understanding of that, it's used to identify malware.
Okay.
So it's a bunch of rules or instruction sets for that. Essentially, it's going to scan files for specific strings. Again, that's kind of like super high level because I'm not an expert on that, but I think that's pretty much what it
Yeah,
does.
that's totally fair. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was just hoping that I didn't.
No,
know if
no
you- I
worries.
just immediately would say.
It tests my my knowledge, and it's good because so far I'm lined up to go to RSA in San Francisco. So if people come up with those questions, it's good to have a test drive.
Nice. Well, I like being your village idiot. So.
I want to pull on this question, pull on this thread that MLV asked here, which is, are any parts of OpenShift open source? I think this is a really important question, and the answer to that is yes. All of OpenShift is open source, right? Every bit of it.
OpenShift is a productized open source project.
Every bit of it is open source. You can see every line of code if you go to github.com/OpenShift, right? Every component, every piece, every operator, it all exists inside of there. It is freely accessible to anyone and everyone. So, what does that mean? Like, what am I paying Red Hat for if I am purchasing OpenShift, right? You're paying for support, of course, right? You can pick up the phone, you can call us. We will help you with whatever is going on. And two, and I think something
Updates.
that's a little bit updates, yep. But I think something that's a little less obvious is when you are paying for any Red Hat software, right? Whether it's OpenShift or RHEL or Ansible, etc., you're paying for us to participate in the open source community on your behalf. So what I mean by that is like, hey, it would be really useful and valuable to me and my organization if OpenShift could do X, which is really like, can Kubernetes do X? And then Red Hat works to bring that feature to fruition and ultimately support it inside of OpenShift. Sometimes we will support things in OpenShift before they're available upstream. We talked about swap earlier, right? And how we support swap with OpenShift virtualization and VMs. That's not fully available, upstream in Kubernetes yet. It's not supported for general use cases, but we support it with virtual machines because our customers wanted that. And to the point of that swap conversation, we're progressing it, we're moving it upstream on behalf of our customers. So I think that's a really important aspect of why, for lack of a better term, purchasing open source software makes sense from a Red Hat perspective.
That's actually a really good answer.
But yeah, all of OpenShift is open source. So my previous employer was a proprietary, software company, and I worked there for 5 years. It took me almost 3 years to get access to the code base because I wasn't in engineering, right? I did tech marketing, and it was one of those like, hey, I really need to be able to go in and look and see how these things are working because I want to be able to create recommendations for how things work and how customers should address this and do all of that. And it took forever for me to get access to that stuff. At Red Hat, I was a partner, and everybody can go and look at the source code and see exactly what's happening there. So it's really, really interesting to me, and I think it's powerful. We haven't done it in a long time here on the stream because we just haven't had need to. But like, there's been many occasions where we just go into GitHub and like pull up the precise code snippet and say like, here, look, this is how it's doing this thing. This is exactly what happens. So I feel like that's a really powerful capability.
Yeah, great answer, Sully.
Now I'm catching up on chat again.
There was one question from XRow GmbH. If you have a policy for QoS saying that nobody should use guaranteed, what should you tell your devs why they should? How should you present that to your devs on why they should not use guaranteed?
So I believe that it's possible to. Let me check something. Actually, it might be possible to create a policy, a custom policy within ACS, but that might be more in the pipelines thing.
And then real quick, Douglas, I'm sorry. I would pay for OpenShift for prod purposes, but not now. Looking at probably starting out with OKD first to see how that goes. I will just say, before you go down that path, get a developers.redhat.com account. You get access to 16.16 nodes of OpenShift, and it's not just vanilla OpenShift, or it's not just whatever. It's not just some run of the mill garbage thing. It's full blown OpenShift, so you can install operators, you can deploy services and stuff like that in a development environment for yourself. And then
single user non-production use cases.
Thank you. That's the exact professional phrasing. But yeah, it'll allow you to kick the tires and do the things that you need to do without going down the. I'm not saying that the OKD path is one way or the other. I'm just saying that like, if you want to get like a full sample of what if you want oranges to oranges, apple to apples comparison of what OpenShift is going to be like, this would be the way to do it, and it's free. That was a hard ass way for me to say that, but that's what I was trying to get out.
Thank you. MLV, so answering your questions here, install from the OpenSUSE repo, is it hard? I would say yes, but not for the reasons you expect. So OpenShift and OKD sort of expect to be shipped and deployed as a cohesive entity. So it's not like with a traditional Kubernetes where I start with my underlying operating system, and then I install kubelet, and then I configure an SDN, and then I do all these things. Instead, they expect to be deployed as an entire, effectively, appliance. So I create my VM and I deploy OKD, which is Fedora CoreOS and all of the things on top of it, or I deploy OpenShift, which is RHEL CoreOS and all of those things inside of it. So you would want to use one of the distribution methods of deploying rather than going in and saying, oh, I need the cloud credential operator. So let me go to github.com/OpenShift/ I don't know what the repo is, but I'm going to say cloud credential operator and seeing, oh, how do I build this operator? Okay, let me follow the docs here and build it. And now let me deploy it into my cluster. Like, can you do that? Yes, you're going to hate life. There's another question similar up above. At least I thought there was. How many companies are using OpenShift Enterprise? We cannot publish, like not just here on the live stream, but Red Hat in general does not publish specific customer counts. I want to say that the value that our marketing folks tell us to use is thousands of customers at this point.
I've got a deeper answer for Bjorn's question about QoS. Yes, you can create a policy for that. Essentially, you would be creating either a build or deploy policy, and you would use the policy criteria of disallowed annotation. So you could put QoS class as the key, and then the value as yes, or whatever the actual call for that is, and then use that to disallow that type of annotation.
Awesome.
Sean, did you see this question here from Bjorn about blacklisting images when, for example, the CVE value is greater than 9 from a remote registry like Nexus or Artifact?
Yep. So again, that can be a deployment. If you create a policy, and that is the policy, and you set it to inform and enforce, the enforce will prevent that image from being deployed.
And how do you message that to your developers about the QoS policy?
Well, essentially, when you create that annotation, you can actually create a message. So when your developer tries to deploy that, it's going to say, "Hey, you violated this policy." The short message. Here's the description of the policy. Here's the rationale of the policy. Here's how to go around it. So say, "Do not use this QoS guaranteed annotation," and that's going to be how it works.
Awesome. And Douglas, to your question about the AWS bill, totally understand. We all get that. Other considerations that you could other considerations to consider would be, is it OpenShift local? I want to keep calling it CRC, but it's not CRC. I think it's OpenShift local, which would be a local instance of OpenShift on like a laptop or something like that, where you could run things. And then you could also do single node OpenShift, which is a single node OpenShift. And so it helps reduce the footprint of resources that you need. Still takes quite a bit, but if you do the ISO creator and you kind of do it outside of the assisted installer, you can get around some of those hard requirements, but just you're going to be limited to what you can run. I mean, so just mileage may vary.
And that reminds me of a question I saw earlier that I didn't get the chance to answer. And the question was around the fact that ACS is quite heavy, Central is quite heavy. Yes, it is. Sorry about that. That is what is expected. Here is the ACS documentation for the minimum requirements. Essentially, you want 3 CPU cores are required with 6 gigabytes of RAM, and that's for a non-production setup. Just so you know. Yeah, so that's information for you guys. Unfortunately, there's no way to really go around that. I mean, you could look around in the ammos and try to give it less, but mileage will vary and will most likely go That's the technical term.
When you did that, I was just like, yeah, yes, sound effects included. I was
Is there something to know for OLM 1.0 regarding ACS? I don't think so.
Don't think so.
I have not gotten hands-on with OLM 1.0 yet. It's I'd love to say it's on my to-do list, but which it is, but it's one of
It
those
just
things where
keeps getting
I mean, it's
stacked over.
yeah, the operator life cycle. Yeah, it's not going to affect. It shouldn't affect ACS. I mean, ACS operator is handled and built by Red Hat, so it's our product, so we should be pretty okay at keeping it alive.
Yeah, and I think it's more along the deployment of the operator and like the resources that get created. Like, say you get like a subscription operator group, CSV, install plan, all that stuff. I think it kind of, don't get me wrong. I don't want to be on here like quoting some bogus crap that I think I read. So, but I think it just has something to do with how those artifacts get delivered.
And Douglas, that is a great goal, and yeah, that's absolutely something that OpenShift could help with. If you're going to be creating something that's going to be that large, I would strongly suggest leveraging the Red Hat consulting services. They are the experts that will be able to architecture the setup and give you all the information you need to actually make that a reality, and to make sure that it's something that can run reliably.
I'll offer an alternative perspective, which I know up above, Douglas, you had said, wanting to avoid large AWS bills, but the managed services offerings are also phenomenal. Like using Rosa or ARO or one of those, I think is a great option. Of you can start small, right, and scale, and all the hard work is offloaded to the or all the cluster management work is offloaded to the SREs, and you can focus on the application side.
Okay.
Okay.
So X row is asking the political question, not the technical question.
It depends on how diplomatic you want to be. I tend to be about as subtle as a truck hitting a factory of bells. So yeah, I'm not the right person to ask for that. I'm not diplomatic.
Yeah, and it really depends on your end users. I think in my experience, like when you're dealing with it comes down to proof and facts. Just the non-emotional, like don't go to it with I feel like this is the best solution. Go to it with this is the best solution and here's why.
Yeah.
That's facts are always better than feelings in situations like that.
Yeah. CGMBH, be German about it. That's the best way I can say it. It's bring the bring the information that you found that support your stance. And something went wrong. I lost the stream of people chatting.
We still hear you.
Yeah, I hear you.
No, I know. I just I don't see the chat anymore.
Oh,
That doesn't matter. Can you guys see the chat?
Yes.
yeah, we can.
Okay, I'll just have you tell me the questions if there are any. But yeah, so you just need to continue. Just get supporting documentation that support your stance. If you've got stuff that is irrefutable, they won't really have a choice to be like, okay, yeah, you're right.
I like Bjorn's idea here. Basically, have like a Hunger Games type situation with the resources. But no, like extra. If you, it all comes down to why you need to do this, like how you're going to do it, and like what you're going to get out of it, right? And if you can go to that with facts and backing documentation, like Sean was saying, then it's hard to dispute that. Like it doesn't matter what you do. Somebody somewhere is not going to like it. So I mean, like you just have to accept that, like you're not going to make 100% of your users happy. But if you go to it with a valid reason, I think most people will see the light. And if you can do it in a way that doesn't affect their day to day, or is minimal impact to what they do on a daily basis, then it'll go over a lot smoother. But again, it's always, in my experience, it's if you go to it with this is why I'm doing this, and this is what we're going to get out of it, and this is how. Facts versus feelings has always been a good approach.
And I opened up YouTube so I could see the chat, and I just have to say, ich bin kein Deutsch, aber ich spreche ein bisschen. Also, du kannst schicken mir eine E-Mail und ich kann antworten as best as I can. There you go.
Is that I'm German? I don't know. Oh,
No, so I said I'm not German, but I speak a little bit.
ah,
But he can send me an email, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best I
okay.
can.
I was trying to put my
I speak 4 languages. Okay, German is my 4th. It's not my best.
I was trying to put my
So-
Duolingo to work there. So
Hey, it works. That's how I learned German.
So is the question about the over provisioning, is it we want to allow oversubscription of servers, or we want to that hasn't been there before, or we want to disallow the over provisioning, oversubscription of nodes where it was there before? I don't know. My approach is always like, one, with rare exception, you're probably already oversubscribing, right? Like unless every single pod across the entire cluster has limits in place, and those limits total no more than the actual resources available, you're already oversubscribing, right? And like, people ask me about this with the virtualization side of the house all the time, of like, oh, you know, what the supported CPU oversubscription rate is 10-1, but how do I limit that? How do I prevent that? And it's one of those like, well, if you have more than 2 processes running on the host, you're probably already oversubscribed, because any one process can consume the full amount of CPU unless there's a limit in place.
Yeah.
So that being said, disallow being not smart. Yeah. So, that being said, if it's a virtual cluster, it's probably also already oversubscribed at the hypervisor level too. And, my response has always been, it comes down to risk, right? Whether you're overcommitting, oversubscribing at the Kubernetes, the OpenShift level, or at the hypervisor level, or both, it's always about risk and what's the impact to the business. If oversubscription, which would impact performance, has a cost to the business that is greater than the cost of those resources, then you shouldn't do it. And while I know that, technical people don't always like to hear business reasons, this is one of those, it's a business decision. Like, if the business is willing to pay the money for the resources to not be oversubscribed in order to, save money, should there be, a reduced performance as a result of that oversubscription, then that's one thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you tell I've been a manager for a while now?
yeah, very good, very good. And then we have one last question from M. Alves. If someone uses AWS Rosa, do they have to pay for the OpenShift Enterprise subscription?
It's included.
It's part of Rosa.
Yeah.
It's included. So there's no extra cost there, which is awesome. And by the way, so I Johnny, did you copy the GitHub page over?
It's done. Just did it.
Awesome. So for anybody who wants to recreate my demo, it is on my GitHub, so you can go ahead and grab it from there. It's not OpenShift specific. There is some OpenShift specific notations on there later on, but you can deploy it on using just straight Docker. You can play around with it and enjoy, have fun.
Awesome.
There is a so Bjorn, there is an OpenShift cost calculator. There's also cost management, which is a part of console.redhat.com. So there's also a local agent that you can deploy and stuff like that. So OpenShift cost management is a great one. I mean, you clearly have to have a cluster already deployed and all of that. For the internal cost management, like how much is this pod or this namespace or this application costing the business? But with the console.version, version, it'll also tell you, I think if you connect it or if you feed it the right information, it'll tell you how much your cloud spend is as well. I'm not sure what your question here, Bjorn, on can you please tell this also enterprise software operators, limitless root containers? I'm not sure what you're asking there.
Kubesploit too. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yep. Yeah, I tend to not really use frameworks anymore. I used to use Metasploit back in the day. I should probably start playing with it again. But yeah, Kubesploit, you're not the first one to mention it.
There you go.
Maybe for the next demo.
Topic for next week. You know.
Yeah, I can't next week. I'm getting tattooed.
Yes. Yes.
Let's see. I guess so. One, I know we're coming up on the end of time. Thank you everybody for all of the chat, all the questions, all the interactivity. We love interacting with you all. That's the main reason why we're here. I haven't told this story in a while, but like, how did we get started with OpenShift live streaming? Almost literally 5 years ago, and it was because of COVID, right? About a month ago is when the world shut down because of COVID. Like all the conferences and stuff that we were scheduled to be at all got canceled and all other stuff. And we were brainstorming like, how do we continue to have the interactivity with folks that you would get like if you just walk into a booth at a conference and here's a Red Hatter, let me ask them a question. And we came up with the live streaming idea and the office hours concept of exactly that, like giving folks the opportunity to come in and ask us whatever questions you want to ask about and chat about and have a conversation. And I used to go to a lot of conferences. You're working in the booth and people come and like, I have this support case. Like, can you take a look at this support case? And it's one of those like, I love those questions because usually they're interesting, but sometimes it's difficult to address that type of stuff on the spot at a conference. But I love this interactivity. So thank you all.
Yeah.
I'll also use this opportunity of like, one, a reminder of if you're not watching us live, don't hesitate to reach out. Email is great. All three of us have our email addresses here on the screen. Johnny at redhat.com, JONNY, Sully at redhat.com, SULLY. I won't throw you under the bus, Sean, on a regular basis. But for anybody who watches the stream and wants to reach out to Sean about ACS stuff, by all means.
Yeah. And if you guys want me to come back, I'm happy to be on. So.
Oh yeah, no, you're excellent guest.
Yeah, yeah, anytime. Yeah, so don't hesitate to reach out. For the folks who are with us live right now, we'll give it a couple more minutes while kind of closing up things. But don't hesitate to ask any questions. Again, we'll do our best to address those while we're here. Now I completely forgot what I was going to say, where I was going with all of this. But yeah, it's been. I enjoy all the interactivity.
Yeah, me too. I kind of miss it. I shouldn't say I kind of miss it. I really miss it because like I feed off the energy from the audience. Xro, yes. So to answer your question, is there a way to get reminders? So there's a calendar. I was trying to find it before I started talking again, but obviously that didn't work out. But the other thing that you can do is you can subscribe to the playlist in YouTube, and then whenever we publish the stream, you'll get a notification that we are going to stream, and that's almost a telltale sign that the stream is going to happen. Like once we publish it, that's when we're fully committed and our schedules have cleared up or whatever, and we're actually able to make it because unfortunately the last couple of weeks it's just been kind of chaotic for us. So but yeah, let me find the calendar link for you really quick before we go. There it is. Thank you.
In there.
Yes.
Yep. So that'll take you to the calendar. We try. So it is a Google Calendar. We try, and like if we have to cancel or something, we try and remove those entries from there. Yeah. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and it can be either the Red Hat or the OpenShift YouTube channel, you'll get notifications, but not just for us. It'll be like anytime they publish anything on there. The Twitch channel is also an option. I don't know. I haven't looked at the Twitch channel. I mean, I have the Twitch channel up, but I haven't looked at like who else on the Red Hat live streaming. There's only 3 of us now, I guess. And Johnny, you're 2 of the 3.
Yes.
So I think we all publish or certainly Ask an OpenShift Expert and GitOps Guide to the Galaxy published to Twitch. I don't think In the Clouds does. I think In the Clouds only does the YouTube channels. So Twitch might be an option as well. Yeah, I just see Jamie posted about that.
Yeah, and if you have topic ideas or topic requests, shoot Sully and I a message, and we'll do our best to get it on.
Yeah, absolutely. We
Or if you want me to come back on, just tell them we want Sean again.
The dude with the great hair, please. The flowing locks. That's just pure jealousy talking, by the way, just so you know.
I figured.
All right. Well, thank you all. Sean, I appreciate you coming on today. This has been fantastic. We spawned a whole bunch of questions, which is great. Even got to put in a plug for like, why open source and why Red Hat. Like, I feel like I don't get to do those very often anymore. So
yeah.
To the audience, really appreciate y'all joining us today. Thank you again, as always, for all the interactivity and for all the questions. Don't hesitate to reach out to us at any point in time. With that, I'm going to bring up the thing over here while Johnny and Sean do final words.
Yep. So just so you know, KubeCon is next week, April 1st through the 4th. So we will not be on next week, but the 16th of April we have HashiCorp. So if you remember, we had Rosemary on a couple of years ago, or maybe a year and some change ago. It's been a while since she's come on, but she's going to come back. We're going to talk about HashiCorp and OpenShift and some other stuff. So stay tuned. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up, and yes, rHope9, I will do my best to make sure that everything goes up early.
And real quick, if anybody on the stream is going to be at RSA at the end of April in San Francisco, come to the Red Hat booth, come see me. I'll be happy to answer some questions face to face.
Yeah, awesome.
Speaking of travel and conferences, KubeCon with next week, there's a huge Red Hat presence at KubeCon. I know Stu, the host of In the Clouds, is going to be there next week, so you can always find us and chat with us and stuff like that. I won't be there, but go ahead, Johnny. You look
And
like you got
also,
something to say.
I cannot believe I forgot this. OpenShift Commons. If you're going to be in London, please go to OpenShift Commons. Please register and go. Like it's an awesome event. Red Hat is putting a lot of effort behind that community and making sure that community stays vibrant. So make sure that if you do go, make sure you go check it out and say hi to everybody.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, they've done a great job of putting Commons together over there. I'm excited to see the lineup.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
All right, thanks, y'all. We will see you in 2 weeks.